All right. Hello, Shabbat Shalom. Today is a Shabbat if you're on the same calendar that I am. Just a moment. I need to grab something real quick. All right. I just wanted to clip this real quick. I forgot to do this yesterday. Where the two seams are. I've got one of my green stalks is back there. It's kind of a disaster because the workers, when they were doing the stone work and gravel work and all that stuff out here, they kind of knocked it over. So I've got to fix it. But plus, putting it together will keep the curtain from like blowing up on my back. So, all right, let the camera find my face real quick. All right, let's see. I don't want to be too backlit. All right, is the camera going to find me? There we go. Okay, I think that's better. All right, shalom, shalom, shalom. You know, I was thinking about it this morning. I'm like, I said I wasn't going to do a video today because it's Wednesday. And it's for me on the calendar that I'm on. Today is day 1 of Sukkot. Started last night at sunset. But I'm like, you know what? Why don't I just go live and do scripture reading for today? Because locally, I don't really know anybody who's doing this calendar. So I don't have a holy convocation to keep other than watching online. And I thought, you know what? We'll do a virtual one. So that's why I decided to jump on here. I did see a question though. Rhonda said, "Can't laptop is barely hanging on. Can't buy another till after feast days are over. I messed today up, I think, because I'm cooking. Did I? Okay, Rhonda. It's very interesting that you bring that up because last night I was reading one of these several passages that talk about the feasts, and I just there's a different. There's 2 different versions. Okay, there's a difference. So when in Leviticus, let's see, was it 23 that I was reading last night? Yes. Okay, so in Leviticus 23, where it talks about the weekly Sabbath, it says right there, Leviticus 23, verse 1. It says, Yehovah said to Moshe, tell the people of Israel the designated times of Yehovah, which you are to proclaim as holy convocations. Okay, very important. Holy, they belong to the Father. They are for us to keep, etc., etc. They're my designated times. Work is to be done on 6 days, but the 7th day is a Shabbat, a rest day, a holy day of complete rest, right? A holy convocation, you're not to do any kind of work. Okay, so for Shabbat, it says complete rest, any kind of work, even in your homes. Okay, so that's very specific. But then the next one you see is Pesach, Passover, and then unleavened bread. They kind of roll together. But for that one, it says in the first month, on the 14th day of the month, between sundown and complete darkness, so at the end of the 14th. For Yehovah, on the 15th day of the same month, that means that night, where the two evenings meet, where you have sunset and darkness. That's where the day and end begins. And I know a lot of people don't agree with that, but that's what I go by. So the 14th is becoming the 15th. So on the 14th, you're preparing, you're doing all your cooking, you're doing all that stuff to get ready for the Passover. And then as the sun sets, the 15th begins, and now it rolls into matzah. On the 15th day of the same month is the festival of matzah. For 7 days you are to eat matzah. On the first day you are to have a holy convocation. Do not do any kind of ordinary work. It doesn't say, like it does for Shabbat, to have a complete rest and do no work at all, but it says not to do any kind of ordinary work. Bring an offering made by fire to Yehovah for 7 days. On the seventh day is a holy convocation. Do not do any kind of ordinary work. And I noticed last night that on the Moedim, the holy days, the appointed times, where there would be an actual feast, like food, celebration, it does not say do no work of any kind. On the ones where it has food and celebration, it says don't do any kind of ordinary work, including Sukkot. Verse 33, Yehovah said to Moshe, tell the people of Israel, on the 15th day of this 7th month is the feast of Sukkot for 7 days. To Yehovah, on the first day there is to be a holy convocation. Do not do any kind of ordinary work. It doesn't say a day of complete rest. It says no ordinary work. For 7 days you are to bring an offering made by fire to Yehovah. On the 8th day you are to have a holy convocation. Bring an offering made by fire to Yehovah. It is a day of public assembly. Do not do any kind of ordinary work. So there's other, of course, passages that talk about it line out the feast as well. But that really got me thinking. I think that on the days that are celebratory days where you would have a feast, I think it's okay to do stuff in the kitchen. I think it's okay to do the things that are preparing for the feast. You know what I mean? So I don't think being in the kitchen today, if you're cooking, I don't think that counts. But now if you're a chef and you're at a restaurant, you shouldn't be cooking because that's your work. That's your ordinary work. So there's two different lines, complete rest or not your ordinary work. And it seems to, because Yom Kippur, Yom HaKippurim, which is a very serious day, a day of generally fasting and humbling yourself, that one also says it is a Shabbat of complete rest. So that one doesn't say ordinary work. It says complete rest, just like Shabbat. That is why I don't like to cook on the Sabbath day, on Shabbat. That is why I will generally cook something big on Friday so we can have leftovers the next day. Because I look at the pattern of when Yehovah brought the people out of Egypt and the Father started giving them the manna. He told them on Friday, collect double, because on Saturday and he also said to collect double, but he also said to prepare it the way you want to eat it for the 2 days. So I see that as the example to follow for the weekly Shabbat. Now that said, I will occasionally do a slow cooker dish, but I'll have everything prepped the day before. Like I'll prep it all on Friday so that Saturday morning I can just get up and turn the knob or turn the button on, put mine on a knob, so that I'm not in the kitchen all day or doing the work of cooking. Just turning a knob, that's not work. I don't, I mean, of course, in Judaism, it would be considered work. sometimes. Depends on which appliance you're talking about. um, but yeah. So, anyways, hope that answers your question. Let's see here. Um, yes, only the first and eighth days are holy, and or not holy, but Sabbaths. Those are the only days that are rest. But interestingly, when you read the passage, we look at the eighth day as being part of Sukkot, but it's its own thing. It's separate, and it's very mysterious in a way, because it's like, what is the meaning of it? I believe it is the precursor or the rehearsal, the looking forward to the prophetic of the day Yeshua begins the millennial reign. And I think that when he is king ruling on earth, and when he begins teaching his people the Torah and teaching us what's right and fixing all the mistakes that we've made, I think that's why it's such a great day. And it's called the eighth great day. And also, it is the day that every 7 years, the people of Israel would have the entire Torah read to them. And that someday, eighth day, will be when our king, our priest, our true priest, will begin teaching the Torah to us himself. It just there's so many layers that just kind of point to each other. So I think that's what that is. Yeah, I wasn't intending to do a video today, but I decided to go ahead and do a live for our own little, like a virtual Sukkot fellowship. Ashton said, I think the actual Hebrew words for work in those scriptures is different as well. It could very well be. I haven't looked at them. I was just, reading through this last night and made that connection. Hold on. I need to light my little bug torch over here. I've got these gnats just decided to show up, and I don't need them in my coffee. Okay. Oh, actually, the tradition for Sukkot is to read the book of Ecclesiastes. It's over the years it became the tradition, not a biblical mandated thing. But I thought it would be a good day to do that, and I thought, it's the tradition to read it, so why not? So my intention for today is to read the entire book of Ecclesiastes, y'all, and I hope y'all can see okay. It with the lighting, it's kind of making me dark here, but I don't know that I can get it to do anything else. So, but I can show you my table. Okay, very carefully. Try not to give you all some get you motion sick. So I have a kind of a sunflower tablecloth that I got from Hobby Lobby, and then a sunflower runner. Of course, I've got some gourds because it's autumn, and I got some pomegranates because I thought, why not? Very, Israel, land of Israel, kind of. I've got a bunch of battery candles, which I light when it gets darker. I got this little wreath to put on my little stand here, because the fruit that is traditionally used, and mentioned in scripture, what is it? Is it the lulav? I can't remember if that's what it's called, but it looks like a great big lemon, and we don't have that here. So I thought, well, this can kind of, be an homage to that lemon-looking fruit. And then I've got some little fairy lights in there. dainty little floaty lights. I've got like these little sunflower things. I don't know what they're supposed to be. Actually, do they have a... I guess they're supposed to be a trivet or something. I don't know. But that's what I do with it. Got my menorah out here, and then I have this. And then I've got like goldenrod tucked up in there, lights for, when it gets dark. Over on the side, you can see there I've got some more goldenrod that I went and picked and stuck in there for some like natural native plant stuff. And then this kind of like weed tree looking thing. I don't even know what it is. I haven't identified it. But it reminded me a little bit of palms. And so I thought, let me pick some of these and stick them in there too. But yeah, so that's my simple little Sukkot table. Yes, that was a pomegranate. A little pop of red, a little pop of color. And I mean, pomegranates are mentioned numerous times in the Bible, so I thought that would be a great addition to the tablescape. Etrog, that's okay. Yes, that's the sunflowers, because I like sunflowers and it's seasonal. It's just very autumn feeling. So sunflowers hold no meaning other than I like them. Yes, so I usually put some sort of nativity sort of thing on my table at Sukkot, because it is commonly believed by many, not all agree, but by many, that this is the time of year that Yeshua was actually born, because people who have studied it know it wasn't December. And I actually posted a little reel on my Instagram account. I'll show you here real quick. I'll have to mute it though, because the music, YouTube won't like the music. I'll show it to you right there. If you're on Instagram, the music goes well with it. But it says, "And the Word became flesh and tabernacled among us. And we looked upon his glory, the glory of the one and only from the Father, full of grace and truth." John 1:14. So he came and tabernacled among us. And what better meaning would it be than to happen at the Feast of Tabernacles, right? Again, there's no like hard and fast proof of it, but it just seems to make more sense biblically. And there's a lot of people that believe it was this time of year. So I just like to do that. Oh, Tammy said, "I was wishing you would pan around." Yep, I gotcha. Yeah, many make a good case for it. Okay, briefly explain Sukkot. Okay, so for those of you out there, and there's acorns falling, Sukkot is the second to last feast, Moedim, of God in the year. In the year, and in the the cycle of the feasts. And it's a week long. Well, let's just read in scripture. I read it briefly, but we'll go through it again, and then I'll read. There's a few more instances where it's talked about. And so we'll kind of look, because each one is a little bit different in the explanation of it. So we'll read them all. So the first one, again, was Leviticus 23, starting in verse 33. Yehovah said to Moshe, "Tell the people of Israel, on the 15th day of the 7th month is the feast of Sukkot. for 7 days to Yehovah. On the first day, there is to be a holy convocation. Do not do any kind of ordinary work. For 7 days, you are to bring an offering made by fire to Yehovah. On the 8th day, you are to have a holy convocation and bring an offering made by fire to Yehovah. It is a day of public assembly. Do not do any kind of ordinary work. So that's kind of like a very short version. There are other passages that go into more detail. Hold on, let me find it. So in Numbers chapter 29, it goes into all of the sacrifices, the offerings that the priests would do each day, because each day there was an offering made by fire, that, like it was mentioned, and that one just kind of goes into the details of what is to be offered. Hold on, there's one in particular. I'm trying to remember where it's at. I might not actually have it marked with one of my pages. Let's see here. I don't think I have it marked. I'm going to have to remember where it's at. Okay, so in Deuteronomy, chapter 16, verse 13, it says, "You are to keep the festival of Sukkot for 7 days after you have gathered the produce of your threshing floor and winepress. Rejoice at your festival." We are commanded to rejoice. This is a celebratory, wonderful, beautiful, festive event. You and your sons and daughters, your male and female slaves, the Levim, the foreigners, the orphans, the widows living among you. 7 days you're to keep the festival for Yehovah. Festival. This is a happy occasion. Your God in the place Yehovah your God will choose, because Yehovah your God will bless you in all your crops and in all your work. So you are to be full of joy. So full of joy. So this is a wonderful, like, finale sort of thing of the season of or for all of the Moedim, the appointed times of God. But let me find. Hold on. There's a different. I'm gonna have to use my app here real quick so I can find it. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Give me just a second. What is happening here? Hold on, let me close the app. Let me open up my other. Because there's details for this feast that are not talked about in those passages, so I want to find the other one. Can y'all hear my ducks down there? Let me see here. It talks about, let me see. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Leviticus 23. It helps if I had turned the page. So that part that we just read about, the 8 days, or the 8th day being a holy convocation, offering made by fire, not doing any time ordinary work. Coffee. These are the designated times of Yehovah that you are to proclaim as holy convocations and bring an offering made by fire to Yehovah, a burnt offering, grain offering, sacrifice, and drink offerings, each on its own day, besides the Shabbats, plural, of Yehovah, your gifts, all your vows, and all your voluntary offerings that you give to Yehovah. Back on that. Okay, turn the page. But I thought it was in here in Leviticus, but I didn't see it. Okay. But, so verse 39, but on the 15th day, the 7th month, when you have gathered the produce of the land. So this is a feast that generally takes place at the end of the harvest. And part of the reason there's so much controversy over the calendars is because there's so many calendars that are configured different ways. They're determined by different things. And sometimes this feast, this appointed time of God, ends up coming in the middle of the harvest time when it's not harvest yet, or when things are still out in the fields. And so there's a lot of controversy about the calendars. But this is supposed to be taking place after the festival. I have a cat. Can you see that little lump right there? My cats always jump up there every year. So, on the 15th day of the 7th month, when you have gathered the produce of the land, you are to observe the festival of Yehovah 7 days. So it's kind of repeating what it just said. The first day is to be a complete rest. Okay, so now there it says a complete rest. But we had like we had preparations for getting ready for it. So, like, I don't need to cook today. I did a lot of cooking yesterday. And did all of my stuff for prep. So today can be a complete rest. There's no need for me to cook. I've already done all the prep work. On the first day, you are to take choice fruit, palm fronds, thick branches, and river willows, and celebrate. Oh, that gnat is driving me crazy. And celebrate in the presence of Yehovah your God for 7 days. You are to observe it as a feast to Yehovah 7 days in the year. It is a permanent regulation, generation after generation. Keep it in the 7th month. You are to live in Sukkot for 7 days. Every citizen of Israel is to live in a sukkah. This is a sukkah. So that generation after generation of you will know that I made the people of Israel live in Sukkot. Sukkot is just plural for sukkah. When I brought them out of the land of Egypt, I am Yehovah your God. Got it. Sorry. I am Yehovah your God. Thus Moshe announced to the people of Israel the designated times of Yehovah. So I was listening. David Wilbur is a Bible teacher. His is one of the channels that's linked on my channel page here. If you go scroll down, you'll see some pages that are linked. His is one of them. He is very, very academic in his teachings. And he said that the word that is translated there as live means to sit. And so do we live? Do we do what? Or it's sometimes translated as dwell, could be live, but the word is actually sit. So what generally a lot of people do is build something like this as a remembrance of the feast. Because we can't fully keep this because we're not in Israel. We're not in the land. We're not in the position to do all the things that are talked about in Scripture. And so many people will build something like this. It could be simple. It could be fancy. It could be huge, small. Some people who like live in cities and apartments will decorate their dining room like a sukkah. There's all sorts of different ways of just remembering this very special time of God. But all of this is pointing to a wedding feast. And that is just the beauty of this feast, because it being the finale of God's appointed times, of the cycle of the feasts, it makes you think of Messiah and his bride when he comes for his bride, because he's gone away to prepare himself a place. If you've ever studied the Hebrew wedding model, and I have brought this up so many times because it gives the scriptures a whole new meaning that just it truly blows your mind. And that's what I did a little video that was like an introduction to the idea of the Hebrew wedding, like what the traditions were and how they were a week long, and just all of the details of it. And when you study it, you realize every single one of the feasts, or the Moedim, is an element of a wedding. You know, the spring feasts are all of the elements of the betrothal taking place. And then the fall feasts are the wedding. And it's amazing when you study it, just amazing. And so the fact that this is a celebratory, joyous, festive, week-long celebration prophetically points to the wedding feast, the one that is to come. And, someday we'll be able to do this for real. A lot of people, if there's an area where there's a lot of believers, they'll get together in campgrounds, they'll camp for a week and dwell in temporary, dwellings, tents, RVs, whatever, camping out for a week, having fellowship and cookouts and, just worship and study and all of that. But then the first day and the eighth day having just worship and, just being with the Father and fellowshipping and all of that together. And it's a beautiful, beautiful time. Is travel permitted during Sukkot if it's for safety? Um, I don't know. I mean, maybe. There's things in the Bible that it doesn't say. So to make a declaration as to what is and what isn't allowed, honestly, that's just one of those things you have to pray for and ask the Father. If there's so many things that the Bible does not say. Um, But it's not like the entire week of Sukkot is a Shabbat. It's only the first day, today for me, on the calendar that I use, and then the eighth day. And then everything else is kind of a normal day, but, it should still be special. Um, I'll eat out here, eat my dinners out here the whole time, spend as much time out here as I can during the day, reading my Bible, listening to music. One of the things that I started doing, because this is when I believe this happened, there is a lot of beautiful music that has been written over the decades and centuries that I would refer to as nativity music, worshipful, beautiful music. And I have a playlist and I call it Sukkot. And I started putting together songs that, the world would consider Christmas songs, but they're all about the Messiah. They're all about the miracle of him coming in flesh and walking among us and being our example and pointing us back to the Father and ultimately atoning for our sins. And so those beautiful worshipful songs, I play those this time of year and I thoroughly enjoy them. I'm very selective about the ones that I choose. Like one of my favorite songs is Oh Holy Night. That is, and I'm actually trying to figure out, years ago when I did Christmas, there was a version of that song that I can remember just playing over and over again, weeping and worshiping God with. And it was a powerful version of it. And I cannot remember who sang that version. And I'm trying to find it. I'm trying to remember who it was. Like I've listened to multiple versions trying to figure out who it was, but I want to add that to my playlist. Yeah, Oh Holy Night. It's just it's the line where it gets the bridge, I guess that's called. Fall on your knees and hear the angel voices. I mean, it's just that line, that fall on your knees. Just Holy is our God. Holy is his Messiah. It's just, they're beautiful songs. David Phelps sings it the best. I don't know. That name sounds familiar. I don't exactly know who that is. I'll have to, let's see. I'll write it down and look for it. Okay, let me scroll up and see if I've missed any questions. Oh yeah, except on the Saturday Sabbath. Right. Because we do still have the normal weekly Sabbath that takes place during Sukkot, depending on where it falls, each year. So something else that was done with Sukkot, and let me see. I don't know if it's something else that came to be done was the ceremony known as the water libations. It was where the water was brought up and poured on the temple, or poured on the altar. I would assume to like wash it off after all of the sacrifices, and just to wash it and cleanse it. And it was like this big event where they would march in and they'd be singing and they're carrying the water. And um, that same um, that same ceremony was taking place when Yeshua was there, and when he made the proclamation about him being the water that brings life, and anyone who comes to him will never thirst again. When he made that proclamation, that was on the 8th day. That was at Sukkot when he cried out this proclamation. Um, that was that water. That was the water ceremony that was taking place at that time. And he's like, y'all are pouring out this water. You're making this big thing about the water, but I'm the water you need. And pretty amazing. But yeah, so Sukkot is just a beautiful, reverent, celebratory, fun sort of thing. Just when I start planning for it, or wanting to do my decorations, it's in the autumn, which is my favorite season of the year. But it's a wedding. I think, or it's the wedding, and the Hebrew wedding lasted 7 days. If you haven't familiarized yourself with the Hebrew wedding, look on my channel, do a search. You'll see a video where I kind of go into the details of it, and that's just an introduction. There's way more to it, but it's just an introduction to kind of like wet the whistle for people to start studying it. All right, so I mentioned earlier that it is customary to read the book of Ecclesiastes during Sukkot. And I figured that we would do that today. So it'll be a long reading. I'm going to read the entire, it's not too long, but it's a little bit longer than usual. But we're going to read the entire book of Ecclesiastes. So I'm going to read here in the beginning of my Bible. It's the CJB Bible, again, my favorite version of the Bible, and I have a study version. But there are, well, I'm just going to read this introduction. It says, although the book of Ecclesiastes belongs to the wisdom literature of the Tanakh, the Old Testament, it is a genre of writing not limited to the wise men of Israel. Whereas the prophets were mainly concerned with religious matters, the wise men concerned themselves with the practical aspects of living. Ecclesiastes belongs to the wisdom category because it wrestles with the perplexities of life. The book of Ecclesiastes has long presented expositors and readers with a formidable challenge. Do the author's comments reveal the viewpoint of God on human activity in this life, death, and judgment? Or do they record the mindset and viewpoint of Shlomo, Solomon's, at the time in his life when he fell into idolatry, sin, and disobedience? 1 Kings 11:1 through 10 reveals that Shlomo departed from God and became engrossed in pagan idolatry, which we know. Think of his hundreds of wives and concubines that he was told not to have. And it specifies in Scripture that he's not supposed to gain all this stuff. His unfaithfulness probably led to a cynical view on life. On the other hand, he may have returned to God in his later years, in which case Ecclesiastes functions as his testimony about what he learned during his departure and return to God. In any case, when writing Ecclesiastes, he wrote under... Oh, bleh, go away. Sorry. Daddy long legs. Oh. Um, oh, okay. Where was I? In any case, now I'm going to be creeped out. When writing Ecclesiastes, he wrote under the inspiration of the Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit, according to 2 Timothy 3:16. In exhorting his readers to remember God, he may be confessing his failure and giving us the key to joyful living in the world. His summary is a challenge for the ages. Fear God and keep his mitzvot, which is in 12:13. A common mistake interpreters make is to view Shlomo's comments as incorrect conclusions about life made by a man who is out of fellowship with God. On the contrary, the teachings of Ecclesiastes are not an unspiritual nature, but rather insights and counsel from a man who observed some of the frustrating characteristics of life in this world. Even though believers began to enjoy the personal indwelling of the Ruach HaKodesh after Shavuot, or Pentecost, that reality does not remove the fact that many of life's experiences remain enigmatic, and many people experience frustrations similar to Shlomo's. Okay, so that is the introduction. Do you sleep in there? I do not sleep in here. Ordinarily, I set up my tent. And I sleep out here in the yard. In Alabama, I slept out in my garden because that's where I also set up a sukkah. It didn't look like this one. I made it out of cattle panels that were in the garden. You've probably seen a picture of that. It's in my article about Sukkot on my website. So I eat in here, I sit in here, I dwell in here, but then I sleep in my tent. However, at the moment, my husband is out of town, and because we have 4 dogs in there and one of them is very sick, I don't sleep outside because it just would not go well. So my husband will be home here shortly, and so then I will finish Sukkot in my tent. But not everybody does it. Some people just do this. Some people don't do this part at all. Some people just do the first and last days, because they see us as not being in Israel and that therefore we can't do this. So all I can say is pray about it and let the Father lead you in what you think he wants you to do. Okay, so Ecclesiastes, like I said, we're going to read the entire book because it has become the tradition to read Ecclesiastes during Sukkot. And so I figured, why not? All right. So another quick sip of coffee. All right. Ecclesiastes. So let's pray real quick. Ah, Yahovah, thank you for this beautiful day. Thank you for the gift of Sukkot that you have given to us. Thank you for the meaning behind it. And thank you for just showing us how beautiful your feasts are, that your appointed times are for all of your believers, all of us who call you Abba, Father. Lord, just be with us as we read your word today and just give each and every one of us the nuggets that we need today. Nourish our mind and our souls and our spirit with your word, Father. And we just ask this in the name of your Son, Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus the Christ. Nope, one moment. Okay, let's see. All right. Ecclesiastes chapter 1. Before I dive in, the very first line says, the words of Kohelet, the son of David, king in Yerushalayim. It says down here, the words of Kohelet, that line right there, although both Jewish and Christian scholars trust that Shlomo, Solomon, is the author, the Talmud notes that Bava Batra 15a, or in that, it's a line in the Talmud, that it's King Hezekiah and his colleagues committed to writing the books of Isaiah, Proverbs, Solomon, and Ecclesiastes. So in the Talmud, they say it's not Solomon, but pretty much everybody else believes it's Solomon who wrote this. So the name, the Kohelet, throws in some confusion, but it is widely understood that this is Solomon. So just putting that out there. All right. The words of Kohelet, the son of David, king in Yerushalayim. Pointless, pointless, says Kohelet. Utterly meaningless. Nothing matters. What does a person gain from all his labor at which he toils under the sun? Generations come, generations go, but the earth remains forever. The sun rises, the sun sets, then it speeds to its place and rises there. The wind blows south, then it turns north. The wind blows all around and keeps returning to its rounds. All the rivers flow to the sea, yet the sea is not full. To the place from which the rivers flow, there they keep on returning. Everything is wearisome, more than one can express. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, the ear not filled up with hearing. What has been is what will be. What has been done is what will be done. And there is nothing new under the sun. Is there something of which it is said, see, this is new? It existed already in the ages before us. No one remembers the people of long ago, and those to come will not be remembered by those who come after them. I, Kohelet, have been king over Israel in Yerushalayim. I wisely applied myself to seek out and investigate everything done under heaven. What a bothersome task God has given humanity to keep us occupied. I have seen all the activities that are done under the sun, and it is all pointless, feeding on wind. What is crooked can't be straightened, and what is not there can't be counted. I said to myself, look, I have acquired much wisdom, more than anyone ruling Yerushalayim before me. Yes, I experienced a great deal of wisdom and knowledge. Yet when I applied myself to understanding wisdom and knowledge, as well as stupidity and folly, I came to see that this too was merely feeding on wind. For in much wisdom is much grief. The more knowledge, the more suffering. All right, chapter 2. I said to myself, come now, I will test myself with pleasure and enjoying good things. But this too was pointless. Of laughter, I said, this is stupid. And of pleasure, what is the use of it? I searched my mind for how to gratify my body with wine, and my mind still guiding me with wisdom. How to pursue foolishness. My object was to find out what was the best thing for people to do during the short time they have under heaven to live. I worked on a grand scale. I built myself palaces, planted myself vineyards, and made myself gardens and parks. In them I planted all kinds of fruit trees. I made myself pools from which to water the trees springing up in the forest. I bought male and female slaves, and I had my home born slaves as well. I also had growing herds of cattle and flocks of sheep, more than anyone before me in Jerusalem. I amassed silver and gold, the wealth of kings and provinces. I acquired male and female singers, things that provide sensual delight, and a good many concubines. I think you can hear why this is understood to be Solomon, because it sure sounds like him. So I grew great, surpassing all who preceded me in Jerusalem. My wisdom, too, stayed with me. I denied my eyes nothing they wanted, withheld no pleasure from myself, for I took pleasure in all my work, and this was my reward for all my work. Then I looked at all that my hands had accomplished, and at all the work that I had toiled at, and I saw that it was all meaningless and feeding on wind, and that there was nothing to be gained under the sun. So I decided to look more carefully at wisdom, stupidity, and foolishness, for what can the man who succeeds the king do, except that has already been done? I saw that wisdom is more useful than foolishness, just as light is more useful than darkness. The wise man has eyes in his head, but the fool walks in darkness, yet the same fate awaits them all. So I said to myself, if the same thing happens to the fool as to me, then what did I gain by being wise? And I thought to myself, this too is pointless. For the wise man, like the fool, will not be long remembered, inasmuch as in the times to come everything will long ago have been forgotten. The wise man, no less than the fool, must die. So I came to hate life, because the activities done under the sun were loathsome to me, since everything is meaningless and feeding on wind. I hated all the things for which I had worked under the sun, because I saw that I would have to leave them to the man who will come after me. Who knows whether he will be a wise man or a fool? Yet he will have to Yet he will have control over all the things I worked for, and which demonstrated how wise I am under the sun. This too is pointless. Thus I came to despair over all the things I had worked for under the sun. Here is a man whose work is done with wisdom, knowledge, and skill, yet he has to leave it to someone who has put no work into it. This is not only pointless, but a great evil. For what does a person get from all his efforts and ambitions permeating the work he does under the sun? His whole life is one of pain, and his work is full of stress. Even at night, his mind gets no rest. This too is pointless. So there is nothing better for a man to do than eat, drink, and let himself enjoy the good that results from his work. I also realize that this is from God's hand. For who will eat and who will enjoy except me? For to the man who is good from God's viewpoint, he gives wisdom, knowledge, and joy. But to the sinner, he gives the task of collecting and accumulating things to leave to him who is good from God's viewpoint. This too is pointless and feeding on wind. All right, that is chapter 2. All right, chapter 3. For everything there is a season, a right time for every intention under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to throw stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to refrain, a time to search and a time to give up, a time to keep and a time to discard, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silent and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. What does the worker gain from his efforts? I have seen the task God has given humanity to keep us occupied. He made everything suited to its time. Also, he has given human beings an awareness of eternity, but in such a way that they can't fully comprehend from beginning to end the things God does. I know that there is nothing better for them to do than to be happy and enjoy themselves as long as they live. Still, the fact that everyone can eat and drink and enjoy the good that results from all his work is a gift of God. I know that whatever God does will last forever. There is nothing to add or subtract from it, and God has done it so that people will fear him. That which was here already, and that which will be, has already been. But God seeks out what people chase after. Another thing I observed under the sun. There is in the same place as justice. There in the same place as justice was wickedness. There in the same place as righteousness was wickedness. I said to myself, the righteous and the wicked God will judge, because there is a right time for every intention and for every action. Concerning people, I said to myself, God is testing them so that they will see that by themselves they are just animals. After all, the same things happen to people happen to animals, the very same thing. Just as the one dies, so does the other. Yes, their breath is the same, so that humans are no better than animals, since nothing matters anyway when they don't have God. They all go to the same place, they all come from the dust, and they all return to dust. Who knows if the spirit of a human being goes upward and the spirit of an animal goes downward into the earth? So I concluded that there is nothing better for a person to do than to take joy in his activities, and that this is his allotted portion. For who can enable him to see what will happen after him? That is chapter 3. Just remember my phone ringer wasn't off. Chapter 4. But I turned away and thought about all the kinds of oppression being done under the sun. I saw the tears of the oppressed, and they had no one to comfort them. The power was on the side of their oppressors, and they had no one to comfort them. So I considered the dead happier, because they were already dead, than the living, who must still live their lives. But happier than either of them is the one who has not yet been born, because he has not yet seen the evil things that are done under the sun. Next, I realized that all effort and achievement stem from one person's envy of another. This too is futility and feeding on wind. Fools fold their arms together and eat their own flesh away. Better an armload with tranquility than both arms full of effort and feeding on wind. Then I turned my attention to something else under the sun that is pointless, the situation in which a solitary individual without a companion, with neither son nor brother, keeps on working endlessly but never has enough wealth. For whom, should he ask, am I working so hard and denying myself pleasure? This too is truly pointless, a sorry business. Two are better than one, in that their cooperative efforts yield this advantage. If one of them falls, the other will help his partner up. Woe to him who is alone when he falls and has no one to help him up. Again, if two people sleep together, they keep each other warm. But how can one person be warmed by himself? Moreover, an attacker may defeat someone who is alone, but two can resist him, and a three-stranded cord is not easily broken. Better a youth who is poor but wise than a king who is old but foolish, no longer willing to listen to advice. True, he rose from the prison to be king, yet while ruling he became poor. I observed that all who live and walk under the sun took the side of the youth mentioned first, who would rule in place of the king, and that no limit was set for the number of his subjects. Nevertheless, those who come afterwards will not regard him highly. This too is certainly pointless in feeding on wind. Watch your step when you go to the house of God. Offering to listen is better than fools offering sacrifices, because they don't discern whether or not they are doing evil. All right, that is chapter 4. Shabbat Shalom, Susan. We are reading the entire book of Ecclesiastes today, since it is the custom to do so over the generations. It has become the tradition, so I thought today would be a good day to do that. All right, chapter 5. Don't speak impulsively. Don't be in a hurry to give voice to your words before God. For God is in heaven and you are on earth, so let your words be few. For nightmares come from worrying too much, and a fool, when he speaks, chatters too much. If you make a vow to God, don't delay in discharging it, for God takes no pleasure in fools, so discharge your vow. Better not to make a vow than to make a vow and not discharge it. Don't let your words make you guilty, and don't tell the temple official that you made the vow by mistake. Why give God reason to be angry at what you say and destroy what you have accomplished? For this is what happens when there are too many dreams, aimless activities, and words. Instead, just fear God. If you see the poor oppressed, rights violated, and justice perverted in the province, don't be surprised, for a high official has one higher watching him, and there are others above them. But the greatest advantage to the country is when the king makes himself a servant to the land. That's what our leaders are supposed to be, public servants. But the lover of money never has enough money, and the lover of luxury never has enough income. This, too, is pointless. When the quantity of goods increases, so does the number of parasites consuming them. So the only advantage to the owner is that he gets to watch them do it. The sleep of a working man is sweet, whether he eats little or much, but the overfullness of the rich won't let them sleep at all. Here is a gross evil which I have seen under the sun. The owner of wealth hoards it to his own hurt. Due to some misfortune, the wealth turns to loss, and then, if he has fathered a son, he has nothing to leave him. Just as he came from his mother's womb, so he will go back naked as he came. For and for his efforts he will take nothing that he can carry away in his hand. This too is a gross evil, that in every respect as he came, so he will go. Thus what profit does he have after toiling to earn the wind? All his life he eats in darkness, in frustration, in sickness, and in anger. This is what I've seen to be good, that it is appropriate for a person to eat, drink, and enjoy the good that results from all his work, that he engages in under the sun for all the days of his life that God has given him, for this is his allotted portion. Also everyone to whom God has given riches and wealth, along with the power to enjoy it, so that he takes his allotted portion and finds pleasure in his work, this is a gift of God. For he will not brood over the fact that his life is short, since God keeps him occupied with what will bring him joy. All right, that is chapter 5. Obligatory sip of coffee. All right, chapter 6. I have seen another evil under the sun, and it weighs heavily on people. The case in which God gives someone riches, wealth, and honor, so that he lacks nothing that he wants. But God doesn't give him the power to enjoy them, and some stranger gets to enjoy them, and this is meaningless and evil, sick. Suppose a man fathers 100 children and lives many years so that he has a long life, but he fails to enjoy himself. Then even if he were to live indefinitely and therefore never be buried, I say that it would be better to be born dead. For the arrival of a stillborn baby is a futile thing, and its departure is in darkness. Its name is forgotten, covered in darkness. And though it has never seen or known the sun, it is more content than he is, without enjoying himself, even if he were to live 1,000 years twice over. Doesn't everyone go to the same place? The purpose of all toil is to fill the mouth, yet the appetite is never satisfied. What advantage has the wise over the fool, or the person with experience if he is poor? Better what the eyes can see than meandering desire, yet this too is pointless in feeding on wind. Whatever he is, he was named long ago, and it was known that he is merely human. Moreover, he cannot defeat what is mightier than he, death. There are many things that only add to futility, so how do humans benefit from them? For who knows what is good for someone during life, during the days of his pointless life spent like a shadow? Who can tell what will happen under the sun after a person is gone? Chapter 7. A good name is better than perfumed oil, and the day of death better than the day of birth. Better to go to a house of mourning than to a house of feasting, for all are destined to be mourned. The living should lay this to heart. Grief is better than laughter, for sadness can improve a person. The thoughts of the wise are in the house of mourning, but the thoughts of fools are in the house of pleasure. It is better to hear the rebukes of the wise than to listen to the songs of fools. For the laughter of fools is like the crackling of thorns burning under a pot. This too is pointless. But oppression can make a wise man stupid, and a gift can destroy understanding. The end of something is better than its beginning, so the patient are better than the proud. Don't be quick to get angry, for only fools nurse anger. That's a good one right about now. You know what? Hold on. I need to make a note of this one. I have a video I'm working on of a little Bible study. And that scripture will work in it. Okay. Don't ask why the old days were better than now, because that is a foolish question. Wisdom is good, along with possessions and advantage to all who see the sun. For wisdom is a shelter, and money is a shelter. But the advantage of knowledge is that wisdom keeps the one who has it alive. Consider the work of God, who can make straight what he has made crooked. When things are going well, enjoy yourself. But when things are going badly, consider that God made the one alongside the other, so that people would learn nothing of their futures. In my pointless life, I've seen everything from the righteous person perishing in his uprightness to the wicked one who lives a long life and keeps on doing wrong. So don't be overly righteous or overly wise. Why should you disappoint yourself? But don't be overly wicked and don't be foolish. Why should you die before your time? Don't grasp just one of these rules, take a hold of the other as well. For he who is in fear of God will live by both of them. To a wise man, wisdom is better protection than 10 rulers in a city. For there isn't a righteous person on earth who does only good and never sins. Also, don't take seriously every word spoken, such as when you hear your servant speaking badly of you, because often, as you yourself know, you have spoken badly of others. All this I have put to the test of wisdom. I said, I will acquire wisdom, but wisdom remained far away from me. That which exists is far away and deep, so deep that it cannot be discovered. So I turned myself and my thoughts to know, search out and seek wisdom and the reasons behind things, also to know how foolish it is to be wicked and how stupid to act like a fool. I found more bitter than death the woman who is a trap, whose heart is a snare, and whose hands are like prison chains. The man who pleases God will escape from her, but the sinner will be caught by her. I have found this, says Colette, adding one thing to another to reach a conclusion. I searched a long time without finding it. One man in 1,000 I have found, but a woman among all those I have not found. This is the only thing I have found, that God made human beings upright, so that they have devised many schemes. Oh, that was chapter 7. Wow, you roasted a whole lamb? Oh my goodness. I have never roasted a whole lamb. That's a lot of meat. I hope you had a lot of company. All right. Uh, chapter 8. Who can be compared with a wise person? Who else knows what a thing means? Wisdom lights up the face and softens a grim appearance. Keep the king's command because of the oath before God. Don't be quick to leave his presence, and don't persist in doing what is wrong. For he does whatever he pleases. After all, his word is final. Who can challenge him? Why are you doing that? Whoever obeys his command will never come to harm, and the wise person will know the right time and judgment. For to everything there is a right time and a judgment, since people are greatly troubled by uncertainty over the future. Even when the event takes place, who will tell them about it? Just as no one has the power to keep the wind from blowing, so no one has the power over the day of death. If one is drafted to fight a war, one can't send a substitute. Likewise, the wicked won't escape death by their wickedness. All this I have seen, as I applied my mind to everything done under the sun when one person tyrannizes another. Thus I saw the wicked buried. They had even come from the holy place. They'd even come from the holy place, yet they were wicked. But those who had acted uprightly were forgotten in the city. This too was a futile thing, because the punishment decreed for an evil act is not promptly carried out. No offense to any Catholics out there, but the Pope made a statement recently that he was very much against the death penalty and that anyone who was for the death penalty wasn't actually pro-life. I would go so far as to say he needs to read his Bible a little bit better. Because the punishment decreed for an evil act is not promptly carried out. Therefore, the people who plan to do evil are strengthened in their intentions. For a sinner can do evil 100 times and still live a long life. Although I know that in the end, things will go well with those who fear God because they fear him. But things will not go well with the wicked, and like a shadow, he will not prolong his days because he doesn't fear God. There is something frustrating that occurs on earth, namely that there are righteous people to whom things happen as if they were doing wicked deeds. And again, there are wicked people to whom things happen as if they were doing righteous deeds. I say that this is too is pointless. So I recommend enjoyment. A person can do nothing better under the sun than eat, drink, and enjoy himself. This is what should accompany him as he does his work for as long as God gives him to live under the sun. When I applied myself to gain wisdom and to observe how people occupy themselves on earth, that people's eyes don't see sleep either by day or by night, then on looking over all God's work, I realized that it is impossible to grasp all the activity taking place under the sun. Because even if a person works hard at searching it out, he won't grasp it. And even if a wise person thinks he knows it, he still won't be able to grasp it. All right, that was chapter 8. Let's see, how many chapters do we have? 12 chapters. I brought up 2 coffees. All right. Chapter 9. I applied myself to all of this, sifted through it, and concluded that the righteous and the wise, along with their deeds, are in God's hands. A person cannot know whether these people and deeds will be rewarded with love or with hatred. All options are open. Anything can happen to anyone. The same thing can happen to the righteous as to the wicked, to the good and the clean, and to the unclean. For someone who offers a sacrifice and someone who doesn't offer a sacrifice, it is the same for a good person and for a sinner. For someone who takes an oath rashly, as for someone who fears to take an oath. This is another evil among all those done under the sun, that the same events can occur to anyone. Truly, the human mind is full of evil, and as long as people live, folly is in their hearts, after which they go to be with the dead. For as long as a person is linked with the living, there is hope. Better to be a living dog than a dead lion. For the living know that they will die, but the dead know nothing. There is no longer any reward for them, because all memory of them is lost. What they loved, what they hated, what they envied, all disappeared long ago, and they no longer have a share in anything done under the sun. So go, eat your bread with joy, and drink your wine with a happy heart, for God has already accepted your deeds. Let your clothing always be white, and never fail to perfume your head. Enjoy life with the wife you have loved throughout your meaningless life that he has given you under the sun. All the days of your futility, for that is your allotted portion in life and in your labor that you work under the sun. Whatever task comes your way to do, do it with all your strength, because in Sheol, little insert here, the word Sheol is the grave, the place of the dead. And a lot of Bibles actually translate Sheol as hell. It's actually, I've been learning some things about this lately. It just means a place of the dead, like where you're sleeping. It doesn't necessarily mean the lake of burning fire. Just a little tidbit there. Because in Sheol, where you will go, there is neither working nor planning, neither knowledge nor wisdom. Yet another thing I observed under the sun is that races aren't won by the swift or battles by the strong, and that food doesn't go to the wise or wealth to the intelligent or favor to the experts. Rather, time and chance rule them all. For people don't know when their time will come, any more than fish taken in the fatal net or birds caught in a snare. Similarly, people are snared at an unfortunate time when suddenly it falls on them. Here is something else I have seen as wisdom under the sun. It seemed important to me. There was a small town with few people in it, and a great king came to attack it. He surrounded it and built massive siege works against it. Now there was found in it a man who was poor but wise, and by his wisdom he saved the city. Yet afterwards nobody remembered that poor man. So although I say that wisdom is better than strength, nevertheless the poor man's wisdom is despised. Nobody pays attention to what he says. All right, I'm going to pause there to take my drink of coffee, because then we start into a line of poetry that continues right there. So I don't want to interrupt it. Yes, there's so many scriptures. Like as you're reading this, there's so many different scriptures that come to mind. Okay, 9:17. A wise man speaking quietly is more worth heeding than the shouts of a ruler commanding fools. Wisdom is better than weapons of war, but a person who makes a mistake can destroy much good. Just as dead flies make perfumed oil stink, so a little folly outweighs wisdom and honor. A wise man's heart leads him rightly, but a fool's heart leads him astray. And when a fool travels, he has no good sense, thus showing everyone that he is a fool. If a ruler gets angry at you, stay at your post, because calmness soothes great offenses. Okay, here's another one. That's another one that I can use for what I'm going to be doing a video about. Another evil I have seen under the sun, the kind of mistake rulers make, is that fools are promoted to high positions, while the rich occupy humble places. I have seen servants ride in horses, while princes walk on foot like slaves. He who digs a pit may fall into it. He who breaks through a wall may be bitten by a snake. He who quarries stones may get hurt by them, and he who chops wood puts himself in danger. If the hatchet's iron, the blade is blunt, and its user doesn't sharpen it, he will have to exert more effort. But if the expert has the advantage of his skill, the advantage of his skill. If a snake bites before it is charmed, the snake charmer has no advantage. The words spoken by the wise bring them favor, but the lips of a fool swallow him up. What he says starts with foolishness and ends with wicked madness. A fool keeps talking and talking, yet no one knows what the future will bring. Can anyone tell a person what will happen after he's gone? The effort of a fool wear him out, and he doesn't even know the way to town. Woe to you, land, when your king is a child, and your leaders start their parties in the morning. Happy are you, land, when your king is well born, and your princes eat at the proper time, in order to stay strong, not to get drunk. When the owner is lazy and the roof sags, when the hands are idle, the house leaks. Parties are made for having a good time. Wine adds cheer to life, and money has an answer for everything. Don't insult the king, not even in your thoughts, and don't insult the wealthy, not even in your bedroom. For a bird in the air might carry the news. A creature with wings might repeat what you said. Or your phone that's always spying on you. Or your doorbell. Or your computer. Or your TV. Or your Roomba. Chapter 11. Send your resources out over the seas. Eventually you will reap a return. Divide your merchandise into 7 or 8 shares, since you don't know what disasters may come on the earth. If the clouds are full of rain, they empty themselves on the earth. Yeah, refrigerator, dryer, stove. Whether a tree falls toward the north or the south, the place where the tree falls is where it stays. He who keeps watching the wind will never sow. He who keeps looking at the clouds will never reap. Just as you don't know the way of the wind, or how bones grow in a pregnant woman's womb, so you don't know the work of God, the maker of everything. In the morning sow your seed, and don't slack off until evening, for you don't know which sowing will succeed, this or that, or if both will do well. Then the light will be sweet, and it will be a pleasure to see the sun. For if a person lives many years, let him take joy in them all. Yet remembering that there will be many days of darkness, that all to come is futile. Young person, if you spend your youth only having fun, if you use your early years just to entertain yourself, if you follow your heart as you live your life and let your eyes be your guide, understand that for all these things God will bring you to judgment. Therefore, remove anger from your heart and keep from harming your body, for neither adolescence nor youth has any lasting value. All right, chapter 12. So remember your Creator while you are young, before the evil days come and the years approach when you will say, they no longer give me pleasure, before the sun and the light grow dim, also the moon and the stars, before the clouds return after the rain, on the day when the guards of the house are trembling, and the men of courage are bent over double, when the women stop grinding grain because there are so few, when the women at the windows can no longer see out, when the doors to the streets are kept shut, and when the noise from the grain mills fade. When a person is startled by the chirp of a bird, yet their singing is hard to hear, when they will be afraid to go up a hill and terrors will stalk the way, even though the almond tree is in bloom, when the locust can only drag itself along, and the caperberry has no aphrodisiac effect, because a person is headed for his eternal home, and the mourners are already gathering in the marketplace, before the silver cord is snapped, and the bowl of gold is cracked, the pitcher is shattered at the spring, the pulley is broken at the cistern, the dust returns to the earth as it was, and the spirit returns to God who gave it. Pointless, meaningless, says Cahulet. Nothing matters at all. Now it was now only was Not only was Cahulet wise, he also taught the people what he knew. Also he weighed, researched, and corrected many ethical sayings. Colet worked to develop an attractive writing style in which he expressed the truth straightforwardly. The sayings of the wise are as sharp as goads, and those given by leaders of assemblies are like well-fixed nails in this case. They are presented by a single shepherd. In addition, my son, take heed, one can write many books. There's no end to it, and one can study so much that it wearies the flesh. Here is the final conclusion, now that you have heard everything. Fear God, keep his mitzvot, and this is what being human is all about. For God will bring to judgment everything we do, including every secret, whether good or bad. And then in parentheses, it has down here, it kind of repeats it. It says, here is the final conclusion, now that you have heard everything. Fear God and keep his mitzvot. This is what being human is all about. All right, that is the entire book of Ecclesiastes. My knees feel this chapter. Yes, technology has gone too far. And it is only getting worse and on a faster scale. Completely unrelated. I've been seeing there's like a new AI out. I forget the name of it. It starts with an S. And it is creating videos that are so realistic. It is hard to believe your eyes for anything. And I think we have reached that point where we are going to have to stay as close to the Father as possible and pray for discernment, pray for wisdom. AI is it's already out of control, and we're just at the beginning of it. There's some channels. I found a couple channels a while back, looking for music. And I saw these channels it was like Hebraic type of music. So kind of like, Yeshua and the feasts and whole Bible type stuff, right? And I started listening to this one, and it was like, I listened to the song and I'm like, oh, this is beautiful. And as I was listening to it, there was just something like, it was too beautiful. And like the words and the themes and were like spot on and biblical and just I got halfway through the song and I had to turn it off because I'm like, I don't think that's human. I don't think that's a human. That's a computer. It was so realistic, but it wasn't real. And I pulled up the channel and I looked, and everything on the channel was AI. Everything. And it even said it when you went into the description, it said that they used technology to create beautiful worship music and all this stuff. And I'm like, I don't want it. I don't want, and y'all, there are AI music channels all over, popping up all over. Like, I saw one that it was like taking traditional hymns and making them jazz, and it's all AI. It's so, yeah, there was something, it was off. Too good to be true. Yeah. Yep. Soulless. Yeah. Like I said, I got halfway through that song and I'm like, there's something wrong with this. And I turned it off. Yeah. And there's so much. And, you know, it's music, it's, videos. Um, you know, we're coming to a point where, like I said, we're going to have to pray for discernment. Pray that the Father leads and just get as close to him as possible, because you know, how long will it be before there's some video evidence of like a politician or a president or, you know, people in office who doing or saying horrendous things, and we can't prove that it's real or fake. And even if people, like, even if people see the video and then later it's come out, oh well, this was actually an actual deep fake, the damage has already been done. We don't see people doing follow-up. They just, heck, they don't even read articles, they read headlines. I think we're just going to be entering such a time of deception. We've got to be paying attention and praying for wisdom. Yeah, it was absolutely the Holy Spirit giving me discernment about that music. Now, Tammy, I don't know if the one that you saw, because she said she saw like a jazz music one. I don't know if the one you saw was AI, because there are like actual human beings doing music. Thank you, Father. But there's a lot of AI. There's a lot of AI. It's all computer generated. There's no human involved other than the tapping of a keyboard and the clicking of a mouse. Um, yeah, I've seen a lot of these channels popping up now. But look, and I'm not telling y'all don't listen to the music. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it isn't humans, and I don't like it. Um, I honestly, because of, I think, my history when I was young and stupid, um, where I played around with the occult and used Ouija boards and all that stuff, I just feel like AI is the modern Ouija board. Um, Especially because so many of these people who are developing it don't know how it works. Like, they've admitted they don't actually know how it works, or how it comes to the conclusions it does, or think about when um, several years ago when they were developing this, how they hooked up these two different early versions of AI, and how in minutes they had created their own language and were talking to each other, and the humans had no idea what they were saying. They had to pull a plug because it scared them, and yet they continued to do this stuff. I'm preparing for no internet. If there is anything of importance that you need to have for reference, for instruction, anything like that, have a physical copy. Like all of my recipes on my website, I've still got a couple hundred left to print. But I'm printing out, because my website honestly has been my own personal cookbook and my family's cookbook for years. I'm getting physical copies of every single one of them and printing every single one of them out. Because, could come a point. Holy Groove. That sounds familiar. I think that is one of the AI ones. I don't know. It might be. But yeah, anything that is importance, if I can talk, have a physical copy. I mean, have a physical Bible, y'all. The app is great. Bibles online are great for research, great for looking things up in a pinch, in a hurry. But make sure you've got a physical Bible or a couple of them. Classic books, literature, physical copies, they're changing them. Like there's, was it Huck Finn was edited to remove racially insensitive language. Digital movies are being edited. Do you know? There's a report that they're editing some of the older movies, like from the 80s, and inserting these streaky clouds to show that we've always had these streaky clouds. They're editing digital copies of movies. Yes, and I have heard that there have been some Bibles changed. Well, heck, in the UK, I know we were talking about it this weekend. You can't even access the Bible app. Don't go with digital. If it's important, make sure you have physical copies of everything. Let's see. Yeah, they say even the elect could be deceived. Yes. In the last days, the Antichrist that will be leading things, he's going to be so slick and so good at what he's doing with his false miracles and everything else that he could deceive the very elect if we're not closely listening to the Father. No streaky clouds since the shutdown. I don't know if there's none, but I know they have been greatly reduced. Because there are some areas where it's like private organizations that do them. But yeah, isn't that interesting? I'll be buying a Bible out of extraction funds in the next couple of days. They have altered Agatha Christie's books. I've heard that. There's a bunch of them I've heard that they have done. Y'all, it is starting to warm up. Let me grab my fan. Okay. Yeah, there's so much. But it just shows you the time that we're living in. So many things are smart, and I want none of them. Yes. Now, I will say someone left a comment on my video the other day where I was showing my pressure canner, my electric pressure canner. Now, it's called a smart canner, but it has a timer in it. There's no Wi-Fi, there's nothing like that. So it's not a smart one as like your smart stoves and your smart vacuum cleaners. It's not the same as that. So I just wanted to clarify. It has a timer and it automates the pressure. But it's not the traditional smart that we think of nowadays. I just purchased Shepherd of the Hills book. I do not know that one. I've never heard of that. Oh, Tammy says, I don't even know when they shut down. I don't listen to the circus much. Yeah. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine this week. I'm there. For the longest time, I was always very, very, very politically active, very politically minded. And I just, over time, I just started getting to the point where I'm like, you know what? They're all wicked. I do believe that good-hearted people will get in there trying to fix things, trying to make a difference. But I think the whole system is wicked. And I believe we just need to be focusing on what is lasting and important. And that is serving God and pointing people to Him. Because if we are doing the things we're supposed to be, if the people, that wonderful scripture that we hear quoted all the time, if my people will humble themselves and pray, turn from their sins, and and I'm not going to quote it correctly, but repent of their wicked ways, turn back to the Father, then He will heal the land. Doesn't say get in there and fight politically and fix your country. It says my people live the way you're supposed to and serve God, and I'll fix the country. But of course, that was a promise to Israel. That wasn't necessarily to America. I just looked here in Wisconsin, and the sky is absolutely clear. We're cloudy today. We're overcast, but it was clear yesterday. And actually, I was just talking to a friend of mine. I said, look at the sky. Look at how beautiful it is right now. Look how blue the sky actually is today. It's not like pale blue. It's blue with real fluffy clouds. Yeah, quitting Babylon. I don't believe there is any fixing this country. Yeah, I think we're at I believe that maybe we can get a little extra time here and there, but I would be shocked if we don't walk into judgment. One of the things you see when you study the Bible, is like the whole Bible, and you read the prophets, you see over and over again, how many times does the Father say He will not abide the shedding of innocent blood? And I mentioned this weekend how the statistics of the United States is not good with the shedding of innocent blood. We celebrate abortions. We make it legal. There's more babies that are murdered now than pre the ending of Roe v. Wade, because now they just nail the pill to the house. And not to mention all the other abominations. I mean, I mentioned this weekend how the Super Bowl is the number one human trafficking event there is. It really makes you think about, when people are watching the Super Bowl. I mean, I've never been big into sports, but I would imagine, knowing that, I couldn't watch it, even if I was into sports. I'm watching this football game knowing that all around that city, there are people being trafficked. Like, it's an event. And that's horrendous to think about. And the problem is so big, and there are wonderful people fighting it, like Caleb House here in the region. They rescue trafficked children, rescue and restore them. There's other organizations out there that are doing that, and that is vital. I think that is important. I think, and I pray for them who are doing it, and I encourage people to support that, because each one of those is a life that is saved. and someone given a chance. But the numbers are just staggering. And I know that there's been things put into place now that we have this administration that are helping fight against that again. But I think it's just a drop in a bucket. And at what point does the Father say enough? Yeah, Lena. That's another thing, you know. You see Sharia law being brought in all these places, and some pretty scary people being put in positions of authority. Yeah, places of worship, churches, and synagogues are being attacked. I just saw there was I didn't see where it was, but I guess in the last day or so there was someone caught outside a church with a Molotov cocktail here in the States. They were fixing to attack another church. Halloween has become even bigger than Christmas in the USA. So Annie, I actually just heard that statistic the other day, that I didn't hear that it was bigger, but I heard that it was on the verge of overtaking Christmas. And that is like crazy. That's crazy. But again, it's wicked. We're embracing wickedness. We're making a game out of evil. And it's just, there's this guy, I can't remember his name. He's from South Africa. He's a white guy. He's got like tattoos all over his face, and like, I mean, I got a lot of tattoos, but he's got them like everywhere. And he's a former Satanist and Christian, and he goes around speaking and talking to people, and he he talks about how there was like a leader of the like a big satanic cult, talking about how he was thanking Christian parents for allowing their children to worship Satan once a year. And I mean, I stopped when I was a teenager. When I was young, Halloween was my favorite holiday. And I think that's one of the reasons, or it goes hand in hand with my fascination with the occult when I was young, with the stupid things that I did. I actually just thought of something the other day that I had forgotten all about that I used to do. And all I could think is, thank you, Father, for protecting me, because my word, I was just inviting being possessed. Thank you for God's mercy is all I can say. But we play games with this stuff, and we just act like there's nothing real behind it. The current admin covers for the pedos. It's disgusting. I think they all do. I think they all do. And I think sometimes it's done as a power play for control. Think CIA and other organizations. I think they all do. I don't know. God didn't whisper in my ear and tell me that, but that's what I suspect. At least the ones in power, because we have seen crackdowns, we have seen people arrested, we've seen like sweeps in cities where they capture and they arrest tons of them. We've seen huge operations like this all over the country. Like 30 kids rescued here, 20 kids rescued there. And so we see all those things. But I think once you get up into those higher levels, I think it depends on who's involved with it. Because I think in the upper levels, the high places, the seats of power, I think that's a different category. Again, That's just my opinion. Yeah, salvation is such a sacred gift. It is. It is. And it is something to be so, so grateful for. Oh, Lena said, we gathered with like-minded brothers until very late last night and prayed to our Father for all of these concerns. Yes, it is a good time to be praying. It is a good time. Well, every day is a good day to pray, but man, it just feels like, I don't know. When this administration got elected, I know a lot of people were like, God is going to save our country, everything's going to get fixed. But I will tell you, I still had this feeling of, I did not have a sense of relief. I'll put it that way. I still feel like something's hanging over our heads, like everything's leading up to something terrible. Just because of all the things that go on in America, all the things that this nation seems to celebrate, the wickedness in music and in Hollywood and the media and just all of these things that are like, I mean, you see occultic ceremonies being done in music concerts, and it's like people are blind. There comes a point where the Father's just going to say, enough. I also think we need to be careful walking with the Father, again, needing discernment, knowing what the Bible says, following the word, because again, that spirit of Antichrist, whether the Antichrist is coming, or if it's just, a precursor, it's going to be slick. It's going to look good. It's going to be very deceptive. It might even play itself off as Christian. So know your word, know the voice of God, know your shepherd, and pray for discernment. It's all I can say. Miss Tinker says, I'm trying to be aware of any man in power who is loved by everyone. When the world loves something, be careful. Yeah. Oh, hope you will share a playlist. So I have a playlist of just music that, like, I have a playlist called Music I Love. And it's just like all the music that it's all Christian music. And that is public. You can find it on my channel. I just started working on one for Sukkot, which is my like nativity ones. But I just started putting it together last night. Because I decided I needed an actual playlist of it. Let's see. Hold on. Yes, I can pull it up on my phone real quick. Let me pull that up here. And like this is a list that I've made for years, and I just every so often I hear a song, I'm like, oh, I like that song, and I'll just add it to it. There have been times where I've gone back and like later on I'm like, you know what, I don't think I actually like that song, and I'll delete it from the list. So I haven't gone through it in a while. Let's see here. But you can listen to it, and if there's music that you like, great. If there's stuff you don't like, just hit skip. Let's see. I'm trying to find my. No, that's not it. Where's my link? Oh, there it is. Okay, now let me come to the feed here. To the feed. Okay. There is that's just my music playlist, and I'll turn it on and I'll click. Sometimes they give you that random option, and I'll just let it randomly start playing music. And there's all different types of music in there. There's like some Third Day, there's some Crowder, there's some oh gosh, I'm drawing a blank. Hebraic. What is that group's name? I'm drawing a blank. They're in Israel. There's some Joshua Aaron in there. There's a little bit of Aaron Schust in there. Shiloh Ben Hod. That's the one I was thinking of. There's just kind of a little bit of everything. Mountain People Worship. Oh, they've got some really, really good songs. I've shared a couple of their songs. So yeah, there's some Brandon Lake in there. But yeah. So my thing, and I've talked about this earlier, like not earlier, but previously, when it comes to music, and the artists, I don't worry about whether or not. Oh yeah, those are Even in Exile. I don't think I've heard that song. I know the Crushing Snakes one. That one's really good. Sorry, I'm getting distracted. I'm going to talk about something in a second. When it comes to artists, sometimes you'll have things come out about somebody later on. Now, if you find out that this person is falling into sin and you loved their music, but then you cannot hear that music without thinking about them, and it distracts you, and it's like it ruins the song for you, I totally get it. But I don't really pay attention a lot to the people who are behind some of this music. I'll hear a song, I love the song, I add it to my playlist. My thing is, if you only listen to music, if the person who sang it or recorded it or whatever, in your eyes, is like the perfect Christian, which makes me laugh because we are all so imperfect. There's only one of us who ever walked this earth perfectly, and he was far beyond us, and his blood atoned for us. But all I can say is the Book of Psalms, a whole bunch of it was written by a man who was beloved by God, but he was a murderer and an adulterer, and yet still beloved by God because he had a repentant heart. So I don't throw out music just because I find out that the artist was a terrible person. I just listen to music for what it says. As long as it's not singing, like the lyrics are what are important to me. Does it sound beautiful, and are the lyrics good? If they are singing things that are clearly not biblical, I'm not going to add it to my playlist. Now, in truth, I have not gone through that playlist with a fine-tooth comb. It's just a playlist I've had for years. So there may be some songs in there that nowadays I would go back and not put in there. So just putting in that disclaimer. When you go on my channel, and you see up at the top, like on the menu, it'll have like videos, posts, all that stuff. You'll see one that says playlists, and you can find the playlist right there because it is a public one, and it'll say it's called Music That I Love or Music I Love, something like that. It's there anytime. So let's see here. Aspen put, Israeli government has geo-tracking software using our phones to track Christians going to church, etc. I heard about it last night on S2 Underground. So I'm not familiar with S2 Underground. However, I did hear a report this week that, yes, there is tracking stuff. It's pretty much every app that is made by a specific tech company, and I can't remember the name of it. But it's the company that made a lot of right-wing apps, including TPUSA's. There's tracking data or tracking stuff in all of those apps. And the data was sold to Israel and probably our government too. Let's be real. If you've got one of these, you're being tracked. If you've got one of these, there is no privacy. None. Privacy is an illusion. Your only chance of having any privacy is if you have that phone that has a, what's the name of it? It's actually built for privacy, and when it has an actual off switch, because you can never turn these off, ever. You think they're off, they're not off. They're on standby, they're still listening. What is the name of it? It's a new iPhone, or not an iPhone, but it's a new phone that just came out a couple years ago, or a year ago or so. And it's designed for privacy. Like, if you have, there is I forget who it was. There was somebody who did some testing on this, and they used like infrared camera and stuff. These devices are taking a picture of your face like every 5 seconds. You can't see it with your eyes. You can see it with an infrared camera. Where are those pictures going? And think about where you have your phone. Is your phone in your bedroom? Is your phone in the bathroom with you? It's taking a picture every 5 seconds and sending it somewhere. Approximately every 5 seconds. It might have been a little more or a little less, but it's something like that. There is no privacy. If you go online, no privacy. Email, no privacy. The tech world that has been created around us is Hitler's dream. So when that ultimate Antichrist comes, a Faraday bag is about all you can do. But then honestly, what's the point of having a phone? What's the point of having anything? If you have anything smart in your house, it's a bug. Matter of fact, I will tell you, some people may know this. Before these smartphones came around, when they were still the little like Nokia flip phones, and they had physical batteries that you could remove when you had an actual off switch and all of that, a very good friend, who was KIA, by the way, it's terrible, but he was in the military, and he was in the special forces type thing. He started off as a ranger, then he went SF, and then he became Delta Force. When he did his Delta Force training, he was the commo guy in the team. And his training included activating remotely those dumb phones, the flip. We didn't have smartphone. The iPhone wasn't a thing yet. He had to remotely turn on and activate the like Nokia flip phone type of phones. And it was something like, I can't remember the number and the time frame, but it was a whole bunch of them in a very short amount of time. So even back then, your flip phone, your dumb phone, not a smartphone, could be remotely activated and the microphone turned on so that they could use it as a bug and listen to the enemy. So imagine what they can do with this. Oh yeah. The back of my phone is shattered. I'm like, what's that noise? Yeah, broken glass. Yeah, just about any phone device that had a battery that you could take out, they're almost all gone. Almost, not all, but almost. Hold on, I'm gonna look up the name of that other phone. It was a phone that was designed for privacy. It gives you the ability to block data sharing with apps, because like Facebook, the Facebook app sends a ton of data from your phone to Facebook, to Meta every night, like while you're sleeping. Like while you're sleeping, this phone is not sleeping. It's sharing all, it's like reporting back to wherever and whomever and whoever wants to buy that data. Hold on, let me see if I can find the name of that phone. Because I've been thinking about getting it. But really, honestly, though, things fall apart. Even that phone's going to have to go away. Because there's nothing truly private. The unphone. That's what it's called. The unplugged. It's unplugged.com. It's called the unphone. It looks kind of like an iPhone, but then it's got all sorts of privacy features, including a kill switch. So it's a physical on and off switch, so it cuts off all power from the phone with a physical switch, not a swipe. And then also, you know, with your phone, you set up like a code to unlock it. With that phone, you can set up 2 codes. One is the normal unlock code. The other one is the emergency code, and when you use that, it wipes your phone completely. Your phone is a brick. So if someone tried to take your phone and get stuff off of it and said, you know, unlock your phone, you could put in that code instead, and there's nothing recoverable on your phone. Yeah, Aspen Glow said, heck, I can only think of something and suddenly ads appear for whatever I was thinking about. Yeah. How many times? Yeah, Tucker does advertise for it. There's a couple people who do. Actually, that's where I found out about it. The creator was on his podcast, and that's how I learned about the phone. Yeah, how many times have you? Yeah, Tucker Carlson. This was like a year ago, I think, that I learned about it. Oh yeah, just a regular mom said the same thing. So how many times have you talked about something complete? I actually did a test one time. I started talking about going to SeaWorld, just to see. And it's so crazy because I knew, like, I was never going to put anything in my computer. I only started talking about it around my phone to see what would start happening. And you can talk about random things, never put it in your browser, never, just talk about it, and you'll start seeing ads popping up. My husband and I were driving while we were still in Alabama. And we were driving through town, the town that was north of us there, Decatur. We lived in Hartselle. And we were driving through Decatur one day, and I said, oh, over there's the brand new Aldi's, you know, that they're building. And we get home, like maybe half hour later. My husband gets on his computer to start working, and all over his computer were Aldi's ads because his phone was listening, because he has all these apps on his phone. And I'm like, well, he's like, you know, it's so funny because I love my husband dearly. I will tell him things and he doesn't believe me. And I'll tell him, honey, your phone is listening to you all the time. All the time. And he's just like, you know, he rolls his eyes about things I say until someone else verifies it. Then he figures it out later. And it's like, I tried to tell you that 3 years ago. But yeah. Oh, let's see here. Yeah, those phone cameras take pictures of your eye iris. Yeah. Yeah. And then you see all the digital ID stuff coming out. in all these different countries. Vietnam shut down, what was it, 80 something million bank accounts because the people wouldn't give their biodata. Your bank account's gone. Now the UK is coming out. Oh, and in the UK, their towers will be able to access everything on your cell phones without a warrant. Did you see that report this week? Crazy. Let's see. Oh, hello, Michael. Haven't seen you in a little while. I'm glad to see you on here. Yeah, my husband doesn't act like I'm dumb, but he let's just say sometimes he thinks I have a tinfoil hat on until he hears this from somewhere else. What was it? There was something else recently, not too long ago, that I had been telling him about for like years, and then he learned about it elsewhere, and I'm like, I told you that. Didn't I tell you that? Yeah, just regular mom. I picked up a work from home job, and it required face scans. It bothered me, but I know the data is already recorded all over the place. I know. You know, they make it mandatory, and what can you do? It's hard. Honestly, I pray for um I pray for wisdom and discernment to know when it's time to say no more. Um, we need to know where that line is. Are we there yet? I don't know, but I feel like we're dancing around it. I think there is going to come a point, though. There is going to come a point where we're just going to have to, what were they called? Luddites? The ones that hate all technology. Oh, interesting. My husband's the same way. Some of the Christian podcasts he listens to have begun talking about God's biblical feasts. Good thing he is interested now. Amen. Yeah, we were driving into Fort Smith one day several months ago, and beautiful blue sky, and the road that we take into Fort Smith takes us up and over this one particular mountain. And when you're up there, of course, you have a view for miles. You can just see everywhere. And this big, beautiful blue sky off to my right from the mountaintop was zigzag crisscross with chemtrails everywhere. And I was like, oh, and it was so, there were so many of them. I took a picture of it and I sent it to a friend of mine. And he's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm taking a picture of the chemtrails. And he goes, contrails. I'm like, no, chemtrails. And I said, you watch. When we get done with what we're doing, the sky is not going to be blue anymore. And sure enough, beautiful blue sky, those strips got wider and wider and wider and wider. They just spread across the sky until everything was gray like it is today. But there's actual clouds up there. It wasn't that day. But my husband's, his career's always been aviation. And so, he didn't believe me. But, then things started coming out. This is probably a year ago, maybe, that happened, now that I think about it. But then after that is when suddenly the topic of those streaky clouds started coming mainstream, and you started hearing about it everywhere. And I'm just like, honey, are you listening to that? Did you hear that? Yeah, those that back out will contend with the masses. COVID was a great indicator of that. I feel like that whole thing was a practice run. I do. And look how easily society turned on itself, and families turned on each other. Um, there's families that still haven't recovered, families that have still like shunned family members, and they still have no communication even after all of that, even after all the stuff that's come out. So much destruction and sorrow and heartbreak, and that was just a test run. My 9-year-old always points out big clouds. Good for her. Yes. This is my prayer for those I've spoken with about the ongoing validity of God's law, that God would place others in their lives to confirm the same thing. Yes, that's what I pray about too. It's because some plant the seeds, some water, some harvest. You know, we all can play a role, and just because we introduce it to someone doesn't mean that we're going to see the fruit of it. There might be other people that need to get involved, and we just need to pray for those people that finish what we started and be the confirmation from the Father to them, you know, and pray for their spirit, the Holy Spirit, to show them, because wisdom only comes from the Father, and it's through His Spirit that gives understanding, and it pulls the scales from the eyes to let them see. So we have to pray for that. We cannot do anything to make people see. We can show them, but it's the Spirit that's got to give them that wisdom. So we have to pray for that. Where did you get your top? This came from aprilcornell.com. It's 100% cotton, and they have it in a couple colors. Um, Yes, Karen said, talking to Lena, because Lena said something about why is it women who notice these things or have the tinfoil hats? Said, perhaps we are more aware and instinctive. My husband is so busy that he doesn't have time to stop and look around sometimes. And I think that's what it is. If you are in a marriage where the husband is the provider and he is working hard hours, his focus is on being that role, and working as the provider and the protector, and all of that. And so I think women being more on, and this is broad strokes generalities, of course, but being the more intuitive and um, spiritually minded, as far as like, trying to think how to put it. We just see with a different lens. God wired us a different way. So while our husbands are focusing on being that protector, sometimes we'll see things that they don't have time to look at. And I just think that's, God made us that way. And, just prayerfully, each will listen to the other and pull the nuggets of wisdom from each other, I need some info about 8th day, High Holy Day, right? Can we cook? Okay. Let's look at it again real quick. So, Holy Day, yes. For Leviticus 23, for 7 days you are to bring an offering made by fire. On the 8th day, you are to have a holy convocation, bring an offering made by fire. It is a day of public assembly. Do not do any kind of ordinary work. So at the beginning of this, I talked about how last night when I was reading through this again, I was noticing the two different categories, how with some of the appointed times it said no work whatsoever, complete and total rest. But then other ones, it says no ordinary work. And the ones that say no ordinary work seem to be the ones that allow for food and feasting. So I would just, me personally, I'll treat it like a Shabbat, no work, but I will like prepare food the day before, because like my Saturday Sabbaths, I prepare food on Friday. I do all the things on Friday. I like to cook a big meal on Friday, so all I've got to do is warm up some leftovers the next day. And I'll probably do the same thing for that. Holy convocation. If you've got people you can fellowship with, worship with on that day, that's a holy convocation. It is a holy gathering. If you are in a church, it would be like a special service. But that's what it says for the 8th day. Historically, in the Torah here, it says that every 7 years, that is when all of the people, because they were coming to Jerusalem or coming to where the temple or tabernacle was, all of the people would come there, and every 7 years, the entire Torah was read in their hearing. Not everybody had a copy of their own copy back then, and so every 7 years, all the people would hear it. So that is one of the things that would be done at that time, and probably how it came to be that the Bible reading cycle starts over on the 8th day, the final day after Sukkot. So I hope that helps. There's a lot of traditions. There's a lot of extra biblical things when it comes to the biblical, when it comes to God's appointed times. But we don't have to make it harder than it is. There's things that we cannot do because, like, we don't do the sacrifices. We don't do those things. But the things that are there that we can do, do those, the ones that you can, and make it a special day. Like, is there a command to set the table up with flowers and candles and all that stuff? Of course not. But this is how I make this a special day. Just pray about it. Look at the scriptures and then just go from there. I hope that helps. Yeah. Learning new things every year. Exactly. And the learning continues. It never ends. It never ends. Oh, hold on, I just saw something here. Rhonda said, I am shunned. I am told it was to sharpen me and they would have held me back in my faith. I saw a couple of people talking about, like, people being outcasted or shunned by their family after they've come to the full Bible. So, hold on. I cannot see. So you can see. So I'm really good at remembering what is in the Bible. Not always good about remembering where it's at. So I just wanted to go to this. Let's see here. I used to, before the days of digital Bibles, like every cover, every page would have just tons of notes and scripture references, and that's how I would remember where important things were that I would refer to a lot. But now, gotten a little bit lazy, and I looked it up in here. I need to stop doing that. Um, um, So Matthew chapter 10, verse 16, it says, "Pay attention, I'm sending you out like sheep among wolves." Oh, hold on, let me check my battery. Okay. "I'm sending you out like sheep among wolves, so be as prudent as snakes and harmless as doves. Be on guard, for there will be people who will hand you over to the local Sanhedrins, the religious courts, and flog you in their synagogues. On my account, you will be brought before governors and kings as a testimony to them and to the Gentiles. But when they bring you to trial, do not worry about what to say or how to say it. When the time comes, you will be given what you should say, for it will not be just you speaking, but the Spirit of your heavenly Father speaking through you. A brother will betray his brother to death, a father his child. Children will be against their parents and have them put to death. Everyone will hate you because of me, but whoever holds out till the end will be preserved from harm. When you are persecuted in one town, run away to another. Yes, indeed, I tell you, you will not finish going through the towns of Israel before the Son of Man comes." Um, and then in Ephesians, let's see here. There was another one I thought in here. Maybe I'm thinking of something else. No, it's not what I was thinking of. But, it talks about because of the truth, because of living for God, people will hate us, even our own families. I mean, Yeshua said, "I have not come to bring peace but a sword." We're going to be hated, and there's a scripture, I'm trying to think where it is, that talks about if you okay, hold on, I gotta find it because I don't want to misquote it. Where is that scripture? Okay. Okay. It says, Luke 14:25, large crowds were traveling along with Yeshua. Turning, he said to them, "If anyone comes to me and does not hate his father, his mother, his wife, his children, his brothers and his sisters, yes, even his own life besides, he cannot be my talmid," that is a disciple, a follower of his. Whoever does not carry his own execution stake and come after me cannot be my Talmud. So, biblically speaking, the hate here isn't the hate that we think of. He's not telling us to hate our parents and hate our husbands and hate our children. He's not saying that. Because biblically, to hate means to regard less than him. So it's about our walk and our obedience to the Father and following in the footsteps of our Messiah. To be a Christian, a follower of Christ, of Yeshua. So if we ever find ourselves in a position where we have to choose between God and our family, we are to always choose God, because that's what it's talking about here. We are to regard less our loved ones than our God. But nowhere does it say that's going to be easy, because that right there also points to, think of in Acts, where the apostles were preaching, and then they were arrested and they were beaten. They were told, don't ever use that name again. And next thing you know, they're out there doing it again. And they're like, didn't we tell you not to do that? And they said, we have to obey God, not man. And when Yeshua said, don't be afraid of them who can destroy the body, be afraid of who can destroy the body and the soul. So nowhere in his word does it say it is going to be easy to follow him. To the contrary, it says you will be hated, you will be shunned, you will be despised. It is going to be hard. When you are walking in the light, the darkness can't stand it. And that is a hard pill to swallow, especially when the ones who can't stand it are your closest loved ones. And all you can do is continue to be the light and pray for their souls and treat them with kindness and patience. That's where those fruit of the Spirit come in. Giving them kindness and patience and loving and being the light, and just praying that the Father shows them who he is and who the Messiah is. Oh, Susan said, I'm Catholic, no offense taken. Many are concerned about this Pope. Yeah, I think that's a reference to what we were talking about earlier. Yeah, he's, not to mention his blessing the block of ice at that basically pagan ceremony. Oh, thank you. This is, it's from Rapunzel.com, like a lot of my scarves are, but this is an actual scarf, not a pre-tied scarf. Yes, his word also tells us that non-believers may be sanctified through believers. I think that was a mistype, but yeah. And here's the thing, and I've actually talked about that in the past, like that right there, because my husband is not a believer. Neither one of us were when we got married, and I became a believer 7 years into our marriage. I think it was somewhere around there. And prior to that, my husband and I lived wild, wicked, worldly lives. When the Father got a hold of me, it was a radical transformation. And at first, there were massive fireworks in our household. A lot of fighting, a lot of terrible things. But over the years, the Father has worked on my husband. The Father has made changes to my husband and molded him, even though he's still not a believer yet. He is still not the same person that I was married to 7 years into our marriage. When I gave my life to the Father, that husband is not the husband I have today. And some of it can be maturity, of course, but There are countless things that I have seen in my husband's life that I know the Father has done for my benefit. So yeah, it is just, we should continue to be faithful and prayerful and loving and humble, seeking the Father continually for our loved ones. Yeah. The holidays, so when I was a brand new baby Christian, um, I immediately stopped doing Halloween. I had a problem with it right away, and it shocked me that other Christians didn't. I couldn't understand why they thought it was okay, but probably because I had that background with the cultic things. And so I instantly, I knew it was pagan. I knew it was wicked, and my flesh loved it because of that. And so I gave up Halloween immediately. But I was in a Pentecostal church, so of course I did Christmas and Easter and all of that. Didn't have any I thought it was wonderful. Um, but then the Father showed me Easter and what it actually like. And I've shared that story before. Like, I took Latin in school. I took multiple years of Latin, and so the roots of words and the inquisitive puzzle solving mind that I have, I'm always interested in the origins of things. And so I remember sitting in the church one day, and they were teaching about Jesus being the Passover lamb, and me looking at this word Easter in the Bible and going, where's the root of that word? Where does that word come from? And when the Father showed me what it actually meant, I never did Easter again. I was still in the Pentecostal church, but I never set foot in church on Easter because I didn't even want to be in the presence of the word being spoken, because I thought it was an insult to my God. I was still doing Christmas, but I started because I wasn't ready for that fight yet with my family. But I made it smaller and smaller and smaller every year, and we never did the Santa Claus thing in our house, so that wasn't a battle. But I made it smaller and smaller every year. Until, a few years ago, I told my husband, I'm like, I can't do it anymore. And I told him why. And he was like, okay, and I know how blessed I am for that. Oh, yeah. Rhonda said, I made the choice. I always thought it would be harder than it was because of how much I love them. My family thought I would cave. Yeah. But the fact that you don't cave and stand on your principles will be a testament to them, and that stands as a witness. Michael, yes, we will absolutely be praying for your family. Yeah, a lot of churches have been moving away from the word Easter and calling it Resurrection Sunday. I think people are beginning to understand. And I think, there's a prophecy where it talks about how knowledge will be increased in the last days. I think it's knowledge of God's ways. Yes, it's knowledge of everything, like goodness knows, science and, all of these things. We understand things that I think humans aren't even supposed to understand sometimes. But I think it's knowledge of God. Because look at how humanity has access to his word now, easier than ever in human history. And the Father showing us his ways and showing us the truth of his word and the wickedness of human traditions and how these things that we always thought were just nothing, how they're actually wicked and how they're an affront to God. I think that knowledge that's going to be increased in the last days is knowledge of him. And so I believe these churches that are moving away from calling it Easter and calling it Resurrection Sunday, I believe they're on the right path, that the Father is showing them He's showing them. So we do have to allow people grace. You know what I mean? Most of us were not raised, following the whole Bible or understanding the whole Bible. And I know I too was completely blind. I didn't know what I didn't know, and I only knew what I had been taught. And, it was a journey for me to get to where I am today, and I've still got a long ways to go. So we've got to allow people time and, and grace on their path. Some people are baby Christians. And I know when I came to the Father as a Pentecostal, that when I gave my life to God, when I was baptized and, in the name of my Messiah, I know that's when my life was changed. And I know that was just as real as any other conversion experience. But just because I was still a baby and I didn't understand everything yet didn't make it any less than, you know what I mean? So we have to just have to continue walking the walk with the understanding that we have in the spot of the path that we're in. And as people become curious, and as the Spirit gives them understanding and wisdom and has the scales falling from their eyes, just be there as a witness and be there ready to help others learn with kindness and gentleness along the way. And some people will never see, but it also doesn't mean that their salvation experience was any less legitimate. They're just kind of like Paul talked about, the group of believers who were, he talked about how they were still drinking milk when they should be eating meat. Some people get stuck in the milk phase. We just got to keep living it out. Keep living it out and be ready to help them, give them a hand when it comes time. Yeah. I was raised Catholic, ish. I say ish because my father does not set foot in a church unless it's a funeral or a wedding, and my mom was Catholic, but we weren't like very devout. I did go to catechism and things like that, but then when I left home, even as a teenager, I was very much, as a teenager, I was very, very into the occult, very into witchcraft, very into, like, the books I read were wretched. The music I listened to was horrible. I dealt with depression. I dealt with self-harm, all the things. And it was all just spiritual darkness that I was in. And then, I left home. I got married, became a mother. And like I said, 7 years into our marriage, that's when the Father got a hold of me, and I gave my life to him, because he allowed me to get so far into the swamp that I couldn't stand my filth. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Rhonda. She said my daddy wouldn't accept Jesus even as he was dying. He told the preacher no. He always punished me for believing. My children went to church with me when they were young, but they quit going and told the children Gigi's crazy. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. We'll just pray for those children to see for themselves that they are not blinded. Which author's copies of the Apocrypha do you recommend? I've shared this before. I'm very guarded about the Apocrypha. There's a lot of people who think that these are all books that we're all supposed to have. I do have a copy of the Sefer Bible. I'm not impressed with it. I think there's a lot of books that are considered apocrypha that I think were just literature. I think they were literature has existed throughout as long as there's been written word. I think a lot of it is literature, and it doesn't mean it's divinely inspired. And there's a lot of people that don't agree with that, and that's okay. I really only pay attention to like the Book of Maccabees because I do believe it's accurate history. Um, but most of the rest of it, I don't give a lot of weight to. Um, so I can't even give you an author's copy that I would recommend, because really outside of Maccabees, I don't pay much attention to any of it. I think it's interesting, but I don't give it the weight. I know there's a lot of argumenting about it because they say, oh, well, it was the council, blah, 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 who determined which books are in the Bible. I'm like, okay, yeah, but I think we have a sovereign God who is more than able to direct the hands of man, and that if he wanted all of those other things in the word that we have, he'd have made it happen. I believe in an all-powerful, almighty God who directs the hands of human beings. And I think everything that we need is in here. And I don't think anything else should be given the same weight that this does. I've got to watch my battery. Okay. I'm getting down there. Let's see. Wes Huff, I don't know that person, is a scholar, and he explains the issues with the Apocrypha. He is a wealth of knowledge when it comes to the apologetics and accuracy of the scriptures. Yeah, and see, that's the thing, too, is there is a lot of contradiction between the apocryphal books and the Bible that we have. There's a lot of things that contradict, even in the Book of Enoch, which I know the Book of Enoch is a very popular one nowadays, and I have read it. But it is understood that the two first books of Enoch are probably real, but then anything else, it was not the same author, because there's names that are used, like of people, that weren't names that were used when it was supposedly written. So it's like there's details that don't line up. But again, um, I believe that if the Father wanted us to have Enoch in here, it would have been in here. Um, I'm not saying don't read it, but I'm saying don't give it the same weight as the scriptures that we're given. Um, and I think Maccabees is a good historical book. It tells the story of, what led to Hanukkah, and of course, what did and didn't happen. There is no 8-day miracle of the oil and all that stuff. That didn't exist. But it's probably because of the process of sanctifying the temple and cleansing the temple. Um, the miracle of the oil, there's no record of that. But the battles that took place, I think Maccabees is good to read just because you see the things that people did to stay faithful to the Father despite the horrendous pressure and persecution that they faced from their government and the society that they lived in. I think the book of Maccabees will inspire you as a believer. Um, Yeah, just a regular mom. I've been against the pagan holidays for years, but it caused a huge rift in my marriage, so I've just been going along praying my husband catches on. And see, that's kind of what I did. I mean, like the whole Easter thing was clearly a religious holiday, and so when I stopped doing that, my husband didn't really care. But Christmas is such a cultural thing that we have. It's not if Christmas was just a religious holiday, the whole world wouldn't love it. Pagans wouldn't celebrate it. Atheists wouldn't celebrate it. You know what I mean? Um, there's just so much Christian symbolism in Easter that it comes across more religious than not. But I didn't stop doing Christmas right away. But like I said, I made it smaller and smaller and less every year until it was really not that big of a deal. Do you think Hanukkah is pagan? I can't say that, but I think some of it is, I think a lot of it is tradition that is made up tradition. It's just tradition. I don't think it's pagan. I don't put it in the same category as like Easter. Um, but a lot of it's man-made traditions. I'm not saying it's wrong. I've done Hanukkah for a few years. I read the story of Maccabees and I make it special for like my granddaughter. Um, but whether or not someone does it, I think that's just a matter of conviction. If you feel it is because it is not listed in the Tanakh that you don't want to do it, that's fine. Yeah, the word Hanukkah means dedication. It's because they rededicated the temple after they cleansed it after it had been, desecrated with the pig's blood and everything. Yeah, those men were willing to give their lives, not just the men, but the women. I mean, the women, if they circumcised their babies according to the Torah, according to God's instruction, they were told they were not allowed to circumcise their babies, and if they did, the babies were hung around the women's necks, dead babies, and they were marched around the city before they were slaughtered. And there was a story specifically of a woman who had, I think it was like 8 children, and one by one, she was told to reject God and bow before their beliefs, of the pagan beliefs, and reject Jehovah. And they killed one child, and they begged her to do it, to bend the knee. They killed the next one and the next one. They got all the way down to the little one, and the general or whoever it was. It's been a little bit since I read it. The last one who, or the person in charge, was begged the woman, because they were down to the last child, please, please, bend the knee, spare the life of your child. And she was like, she couldn't do it. And I'm trying to remember what it was. If any of you know the story, I'm trying to remember what it was that she said, but it was something along the lines of like seeing Abraham, or I forget what it was, but basically she was like, son, I will see you in a little bit. They killed the child and killed her. Oh my goodness, that reminds me of a dream I had. I forget it. I have to go back and read that one. Oh, I don't mind the questions. I don't always have the answers. I'm not an expert in all things, but I don't mind the questions. I can share my understanding of it, but some things you just have to pray about yourself and ask the Father to show you. Um, again, I'm nobody's pastor. I'm just somebody who's on this walk trying to figure it out along the way, and fellowshipping with other believers and sharing what I can and trying not to mess up. I ask all the time, Father, please don't let me say anything that I shouldn't. Don't let me mislead anybody. If I say something that is wrong, let it just go in one ear and out the other, and don't let it catch anywhere. Oh, what was your dream? Many years ago when my children were very small, I'm just gonna give you the quick version. Um, my kids were little, like young elementary school children at the time, and I had a dream that it was the most vivid dream I've ever had in my life. I still remember it. I can still see the details of it, where it was nighttime and there was me and my children and there were other people around. The ground was low on this side and elevated on this side, like an embankment, maybe train tracks, something level and flat. It was completely dark. We're walking down a road, maybe dirt, I don't remember. Up ahead there was light, and there was something there that we were being taken to. And around us there was, lots of people being marched down this road. There were soldiers, officers, whatever they were. They had on these uniforms I'd never seen before, and we were being mocked, laughed at, ridiculed because we were Christians. And there was someone in particular that was these men had like really zeroed in on, and I opened my mouth and I told them to leave the person alone, and that drew their ire against me. And my son, my older son, who when I had the dream was about this big, in the dream he was this big, and I was looking up at him. um, the officers came at me. They wanted me to denounce Christ, basically. I refused. They threatened to kill my son. And I remember in the dream, I'm looking at him, up at him. We made eye contact. And I just said to him, I will see you in a little bit. And he nodded to me. They grabbed a hold of him. They took him off to the side, like down the ditch, sort of, because it was lower. And I heard the gunshot. And then they came at me again. They told me, see, now it's your turn. We told you this was going to happen, blah, blah, blah. I refused. And there was a female soldier or officer, I don't remember, I don't know what they were, but they ordered her to take me and deal with me. And so she took me over there. All of the people kept on walking, and she was ordered to execute me. And in the dream, she's holding the gun to my head, and she starts crying because she didn't want to do it, and she knew it was wrong. She knew what was happening was wrong, but she was in this military or, whatever she was, and she started crying because she didn't want to do it. And I started consoling her and telling her it was okay and that I forgave her. And when I said that, she started crying harder. And I remember in the dream, I'm thinking, when she shoots me, I want to make sure she kills me and doesn't just injure me, because she's shaking all over the place. And all I could see was the barrel of this gun. And I'm like, she needs to kill me. And so I literally grabbed a hold of her hand and the gun and held it still so she would get me with the first bullet. And then I woke up. But yeah, I'll never forget that part where I told my son, I'll see you in a little bit. And he just nodded. And it was very similar to what the lady and that mother said to her, like, 8th child or whatever it was. I don't know if it was prophetic, but there were just details about it. I've never forgotten it. I can still see the uniforms. I can still see what the girl looked like. She's probably in her 20s, dark hair. It's just a dream that it was so, I've never had a dream like it. It was just so clear. And I know that since then, I've prayed often. Well, not often. Time to time, I'll pray about it, that dream, and, just ask the Father, and say, I don't know if that was prophetic. I don't know if that's going to come to pass, but I want to live my life in such a way that I am worthy of such a death. If I'm going to die for the name of Yeshua, I want to go down fighting. I want to be worthy of that. And that's how I hope I'm living my life. And it's interesting because the more and more we see things happening in the world, the more I wonder if that dream isn't actually going to become reality someday. I don't know. I could die in a car accident tomorrow, but I just hope however my end comes someday, that I live my life worthy. Oh, and just another little detail about it. I shared this years ago when I first shared about that dream. We lived in Alabama. The crazy thing is, like I said, I can't remember what year I had that dream. I just remember my children were young and little, and it stuck with me so much because in the dream my son was an adult and I'm looking up at him, and he is taller than me. The wild thing is that years later, when we lived in Alabama, before we had the homestead, before I had YouTube, my husband was still in the Army. And at the end of my block was Military Chapel, because we lived on Redstone Arsenal. And there was like a non-denominational Bible study group. And I participated from time to time if they were doing a study that semester that I was interested in, because there's a lot of Christian Bible studies that are nothing but feel-good fluff. And if it wasn't meaty, I didn't want to participate in it. So if it was scripture-based and something worthy of my time, then I would participate in it. I don't say that to sound arrogant. I don't mean to. But there was a lady there, and she and I got to talking one day about something. And somehow that dream that I had came up. And as I was telling it to her, the look on her face was just like, she was blown away. And I got halfway through telling her the dream, and she jumped in and was giving me details about it. And it was like, what? Because years prior, she had had the exact same dream. All the way to the end, all the way to holding the gun still because she didn't want to get injured. She wanted to be killed. I mean, the exact same dream. And it was insane. Now, I don't know if it was included a child being involved, but all of the rest of it was the same, like including the uniforms, just crazy. And so that just kind of like, yeah, maybe it was a coincidence. I don't know. Yeah, it was wild. It just made me think, okay, well, maybe this wasn't just a dream. Maybe it wasn't just a very vivid dream. Maybe there was actually something more to that. Um, oh, I love that. Carla said, someone asked me how I was doing, and I said, praying I'm in heaven 30 minutes before the devil knows I'm gone. I love that. Yeah, it may have been a vision. I don't know. But I do know that it has had a profound effect on me, and the way I live does not mean I'm perfect. I am not. I have failings and I struggle from time to time and have to fall down on my knees and ask God to forgive me and help me to do better. But I think it does mold me and mold my actions a little bit and help me to be more bold, because, like I said earlier, it makes me want to live worthy of such a thing. And we see today so many believers being persecuted. Persecution is beginning in a lot of places that we never would have imagined, like the UK, like say here, where she lives, laws being written, preachers being arrested, Bible apps being blocked in, the Western world. And then we have Nigeria, wholesale slaughtering of Christians. I just saw another report this morning. I think it was in Mogadishu, maybe. Where was it? There was another place I just saw another slaughtering that happened. Mozambique, 30 plus Christians beheaded. So we just see report after report of, Mozambique, of people being, North Korea. Oh gosh. I saw an article last week of a 2-year-old child being sentenced to life in prison in North Korea because the family had a Bible, and they do wholesale punishment. So if there is a Christian in that house, the whole family goes to prison, including a 2-year-old child. Today, there is a case before the Supreme Court here in the United States. They are seeing a case on whether a counselor who is a Christian, who is allowed to counsel people on, they're calling it conversion therapy. If you counsel someone biblically, is that legal? Is it okay for someone to be counseled to live the way the Father designed them as a man or a woman, man and woman? Is it okay to counsel that? That's what's before the Supreme Court today. I don't know which way it's going to go. I don't. I hope it goes, yes, we can live biblically according to our conscience, according to the Father. But I don't know if it will. Yeah, in Colorado, that's the case. It was a female counselor. Yeah. I don't know if we have more time, or if this is the end of the end days. But we need to be always ready, always living our lives close to the Father, continually praying for discernment, and just, it doesn't matter if it's 20 years from now or 20 weeks from now. We need to be sharing the gospel and living close to the Father and just pointing people to Messiah, because those are the things that matter. It doesn't matter who's president. It doesn't matter who's going to be president next. If there is an election, I mean, who knows? Who knows what's ahead of us? I used to consider myself, years ago, I was a Republican, then I was an independent. Now I'm a monarchist. I'm just waiting for my king to come. I'm just waiting for my king, and I just want to be about business of the kingdom and pulling people in. That to me, that's all that even matters anymore, because I think it's all a show. And I'm not saying that everybody in the government is evil. I'm not saying that. I believe there's a lot of good people who are trying to change our country and turn it around. But I think it's a broken system. And I think that the minute you start putting your faith in human government instead of the Father, that it's a big mistake. I think it was it Nebuchadnezzar who stood out on the balcony, like overlooking everything, and like lifted himself up about all the things that he had done. And then there was was it Nebuchadnezzar who was it? Where the people were like, oh, listen to his voice. It's just like the voice of God. And the Father struck him dead because the people were worshiping him like they were worshiping God. And all I could think of was when Trump got elected, in Israel, they had billboards calling him the savior of Israel. And people like practically worshiping him. And it's like, no, Trump is not going to save America. Maybe God will use him to save America. I just saw people worshiping the man. And it's like, stop it. Worship God and pray God uses him. I don't know. I think we can turn politics into a religion, an idol, and we need to be careful. Hope that doesn't offend anybody. Yes, Michael, that is our goal, to be with Yeshua for all eternity. I'm just looking for the day when our King comes and he sets up his rule, because it'll be a whole new world. There will be no more tears, no more sorrow, no more sickness, no more questions like, Father, is this the calendar we're supposed to use? Or are we supposed to use that calendar? There'll be no more questions. We will have our high priest. We will have our king. And that is a beautiful thing to look forward to. But, all right, y'all, I'm going to have to go ahead and wrap this up. I am so grateful that y'all joined me today. I wasn't sure that anyone would be able to come on. You know, I never know what calendar people are using, or if they're at work, or, you know, anything like that. So that's why I did this at noon. I thought, well, maybe people could join in on their lunch break. Oh, Josh Groban's version of Oh Holy Night. Maybe. I know it was a man singing it. Let me write that one down. I'll look it up when we get done here in just a minute. Josh Groban isn't someone I usually listen to, but I know I have listened to him in the past, so maybe. Alrighty. Yeah, my battery's about to die, so we'll have to go ahead and call this. But again, thank you everyone for joining in. And no matter what calendar you're using, or whether you're doing Sukkot or not this year, you know, I just pray that you have a wonderful week. And I pray that you just walk with the Father. Ask him to lead you. Ask him to help you hear his voice, and just walk closer and closer to him, and stay in your word. And don't worry about the chaos around us. Again, his word said, when my people will humble themselves and pray, turn from their sin. It is about his people living right. If America is meant to be healed as a nation, because remember, that promise wasn't to all the nations, that was to Israel. Ultimately, we're supposed to be living the way the Father wants us to be. We can't worry. We can't fix all the things around us. But we can pray, and we can make sure that we are walking with the Father. And just pray that we're a light and salt. Pray for discernment. Pray that we're not deceived. Pray that we are the good and faithful servants that He wants us to be, because that's what we want to hear. Well done, good and faithful servant, no matter when or how that time comes. So, may the Father bless you and keep you. May He make His face shine upon you and give you peace. In the name of the Prince of all Peace, Yeshua HaMashiach. So, all right. God bless y'all, and I will talk to y'all next time. And I will continue to keep y'all in prayer. Michael, praying for your family. Ginger, praying for your daughter. And I do pray for all of you. I pray for all of you, that the Father makes His will in your life abundantly clear. I pray that He meets the needs that you have, whether it is healing or guidance. I pray for your family members. I pray for y'all if you don't actually, because I don't know who all watches, but if you don't have a relationship with the Father, if you don't know who your Messiah is, that your sins have been atoned for, and that you will hear, well done, good and faithful servant, I pray for you. I pray for your soul, because death is nothing when you have the Messiah, because death is only the next life. We don't have to choose between life and death. It's life and life. But, all right. My cat up there. I hope he doesn't collapse this thing. All right, y'all. Thanks again for joining in. God bless you, and I will talk to y'all next time. Shalom, shalom, Shabbat shalom, and Chag Sameach, which is happy holiday of Sukkot. I'll talk to you next time.